Hello? Hello? Hey, one person. One person. Let's see. Maybe turn the music volume down just a tad. There we go. So, I'm gonna do a pinup of Rouge because I feel like it. I don't know. I just feel like drawing Rouge. What can I say? She's my girl. I love her. She's my favorite. Seems to be a theme with the female characters that I gravitate towards in media. Like, Rouge is my favorite Sonic character, and My Little Pony, my favorite of the main six, is Rarity, so I'm noticing a theme here. Let's see. I was gonna look at get some ideas from some other, like, pin-up-y type stuff. Think about what kind of pose I want to do. This one's got a cat next to it, just because it's funny. There's somebody I noticed posts a whole bunch of, like, pin-ups with pictures of cats next to them. But I don't need the cat, I just need the girl, so I'm just gonna crop that for now, because the cat is funny but distracting. Whatever. I have, like, pictures like these that I keep I have a reference folder, and I keep things like patterns, textures, pose references, and stuff. Things like that. Get ideas. Oh, two people. Hi! Denali Suragaki. Hello to you. It's nice when people are talkative. So can you guys hear the music that's playing, or is that just something I hear? Because I don't know how well you guys can hear the music. Or if you can hear it at all. Anyway, I like to associate songs with specific characters. So, like, when I'm drawing a particular character, I'll listen to a particular song that goes with them. And the song that I have assigned to Rouge is the song "Criminal" by Fiona Apple. So I've got that playing, but I do not know yet if you guys can actually hear it or not, or if it just plays on mine. Dang it. I'm sure there is a way to get it to set the music so that you guys can hear it as well, but I cannot figure it out. Well, that's going to be my musical recommendation then, is that you check out a song called "Criminal" by Fiona Apple, if you have not heard it before. That is my musical recommendation, and I am sorry you guys cannot hear it. I'm sure like I said, I'm sure there's a way for me to set it up so it will play. I've still been kind of figuring out how all the live stream stuff works, and I've been thinking, if people enjoy sitting and talking to me and watching me draw and stuff, that I might start scheduling to do these live streams on a more regular basis. So let's get some ideas, shall we? Want to draw a nice, sexy Rouge picture. I do kind of like this one, actually, but I'm not committed to it yet. Hi! So, What do you guys think? Do you think like a laying down pose or like a sitting pose? I think. Ah, I got 5 people now. Woo! Got home from working on finals. Good for you. I do not envy college students. God, my colorist is in college and a sitting pose then, huh? All right. So let's see. Hmm. How about something kind of along. See, I kind of like what this has going for it. Let's see. Maybe try and move it up. And maybe something kind of like, let's see. Pinups are always interesting to play with. There's an idea. Let's let's play with this idea some more. Uh, mm, I'm gonna I want to have the full body if I'm playing with the pose. So a lot of times I'll like crop bits and stuff off of things. Like I'll have, you know, parts of the body going off the page, but I like to, if I'm trying to come up with if I'm still trying to formulate a pose, I like to work with the full body, and then I'll stretch it out and see if I want to make any further changes or if I want to crop things off of it after the fact. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see. Thinking maybe move it up a little more. Woo! Lag. Lag from hell. That's the size that I'm doing it at, though. Let's see. I like to get a little shoulder action there going. I do really love Rouge, though. I've always loved Rouge. I have a fondness for those badass, sexy women that know how to use their gender to their advantage, and they're kind of sneaky and whatnot. I love those characters. You know, um, it's unfortunate, like, I think sometimes they get shit from people, like, some people complain that, "Oh, so and so is manipulative," or whatever, like, Rarity gets complaints in My Little Pony. I hear guys complain that she's manipulative, like, Rarity is using what she's got to her advantage. She's not a big fighter, like, and to be honest, I don't think that using your feminine wiles in a situation to your advantage is any more deplorable than resorting to fisticuffs. I mean, there are situations in which if it was a dude in that situation, he might just get into a fight with the person where Rarity can just bat those eyelashes and whatnot and get what she wants that way. And I think there's something commendable about that myself. Not saying that I'm encouraging people to manipulate people to for selfish means, but I think that when you're using those feminine wiles in a way that pretty much benefits all involved, or at least isn't hurting anybody, I don't really see what the problem is myself. But maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just like a horrible person because I think that girls should know how to use their gender as a tool. Maybe I'm just terrible like that. Let's see. His hand is terrible. Whatever. And you want to make sure you account for that meat, the meaty legs. I found something once on Fur Affinity that was rather interesting, where like they had taken the measurements of like Rouge's bust and hips and breast size and whatnot, and they actually they measured that and they compared that to like the average statistics. Anybody who ever tells you that Rouge is an unrealistic depiction of women, apparently not. Like apparently she's actually the most realistically proportioned character of the girls in Sonic. It just looks more exaggerated. Like she looks unrealistic simply because we're used to most Mobians being very modest in their figure. Like girls like Sally or Amy or whatever have hips and they have boobs, but they're not as noticeable. Rouge just happens to be the curvier. So let's see. Does she? Let's see. I'm looking at some stuff now. Sitting and laying are good. I like laying. Does she wear more skin tight outfits or dresses? Tight skin outfits. I don't know. Nah, you're good. Just thought about it a bit more. Um, my Rouge wears. Actually, I got a picture of her. Right here. Here we go. This was a piece of concept art that was done for the Reborn universe, and this is pretty much the design for Rouge. This isn't entirely like fitting to how I draw her in the comic because this is earlier concept art. As far as the costume design hasn't really changed. Um, thus far, she's only been in like one panel of the comic, um, one or two panels, and she's I think been in like three. Anyway, you see her briefly at the end of chapter 1. You are going to see more of her in chapter 3, and she will have chapters that focus on her later as the story goes along. I am working on inking the rest of chapter 2. Admittedly, like chapter 2, I was worried that people would get into it and that the audience would be frustrated with the fact that it kind of takes a break from the main story to do a bunch of like background stuff. But people seem to be really enjoying the second chapter, even though it's not, even though it means that you have this sort of like chapter 1 ends on a cliffhanger, and then chapter 2 doesn't even address said cliffhanger. Instead, it goes into backstory, and then chapter 3 is where we pick back up off of where chapter 1 ended. And actually, a lot of Reborn is probably going to be written. It's actually all been planned ahead of time, but it's still going to be written pretty much in that style where the you'll have the main plot line, and you'll have a chapter that contributes to that main plot line, and then you'll have a chapter of backstory, which may or may not have any real bearings on the main plot, but the backstory always puts what's going on in the main story in context. Like, you better understand the stakes of the main plot line when you get these other things, these other bits of background information. And I think that all the backstory chapters are still good, personally. I did one backstory chapter for each character, um, and they kind of explain how the characters got to be the way that they are now in the story. You know, like Rouge's story explains how she ended up being a thief in the first place and how she eventually ended up working for Gunn, and all of that comes into play. Her history with Knuckles too gets explained. Like they have a personal history together in this universe that gets explained. Let's see. Um, I feel like she should be wearing stilettos. Honestly, I gave her these clunky boots in the concept art, but I mean, this is Rouge we're talking about. She should have something sexier than that, honestly. Could put her on a rooftop. That could be cool. Like, let's see. This picture is so big, it's causing it to. Maybe I should do stuff on a smaller canvas when I'm doing live streams because size slows down a little bit during live streams. Let's see. So here we've got our refined concept. All right. It's still a work in progress. Um, let's see. Let's see what you guys are saying. Love your art. Oh, thank you. Audio is breaking up slightly. I'm sorry. I don't really know how to help with the audio thing. And like I said, Psy is lagging a little bit as well. I'm going to try shrinking the picture just a little and see if it helps things on my end run a little bit smoother. I don't need to change the canvas size. Because I'm normally doing pictures at like 10 inch by 10 inch, 300 dpi, which is pretty big. Reason for that being that I like to have most of my art, like, I like to be in the habit of things being big enough and high enough quality that they can be printed. Let's, uh, let's do like, constraintful portion. Let's try 5 and 8. That's going to, oh wait, that's gonna make Rouge look all weird because I wasn't cropping the image any. I just, okay, now she's gonna look all stretched because I forgot that I'm adjusting the whole image, not the canvas. Yep, there we go. Now she looks all weird. But that's easy enough to fix. This is just a sketch anyway, so I just need to do that. Hmm. Ooh, I'm starting to get a picture, like an image in my mind of what kind of direction to go with this. Let's see. Um, I had I'm thinking about maybe adding like a cigarette because that could add some cool effects, and then put like the city lights behind her, nighttime lighting. That could be really cool. Um, and for those, some of you may have already seen the original Reborn comic that was on my old DeviantArt. Some of you may have not, but in the original comic concept, I had Rouge as a smoker. Rouge and Sonic both smoked in the original one, and I kind of ended up. I'm not sure if I wanted to keep that or not. I do love drawing characters smoking just because it's a fun little effect to do, and it adds to the when you have a character who's a smoker, you have more body language you can incorporate. Like there's a sort of way, like when somebody is smoking in a scene, it adds a certain tone to that conversation, um, a sort of attitude to the character, and it adds a little bit of extra body language that can be utilized as well. The way a person is holding a cigarette in a particular scene, for example, as well as like what kind of things they smoke. Like a character who smokes a cigar gives a different feel from someone who smokes a cigarette, which gives a different feel from somebody who uses, say, like a cigarette holder, which I could see Rouge doing that potentially. I could see her with just either a regular cigarette or with a holder, depending on what direction you wanted to go with her, really. But um, bigger boobies, make them bigger. This is Rouge. The boobies should be all squished up against her legs because it's Rouge. Big boobies, big boobies. Yes, all the boobage. Um, what do you guys think about the smoking thing? Like, would you like? Do you think I should keep Rouge as a smoker in the comic? Do you think I should, or do you think I should just not futz with that? I don't know. I'll have your opinions. Also, by saying Sonic, I guess I did give away a plot point, but honestly, anybody who read the old comic already knows what's going on. So, I mean, it's not really a spoiler unless you're completely new to my stuff. But, let's see. And I'm thinking about maybe putting, like, Shadow standing behind her, but we just get to see, like, a little bit of him. So that also adds to this. Let's see. But proportioning this is gonna be a fucking bitch. I need to figure out how to. I may just sketch a full body picture of Shadow standing and then just try and like size it correctly and stick it in the corner. Check back. Hey, Alex. Yes, Victoria Mendia. Mendina. Sorry. Yes, Victoria. I should. The smoking. You mean? So yeah, these live streams kind of turn into an opportunity for people to sit and get spoilers on things or just hear all of the thoughts that go through my head on all sorts of subjects. I think a lot about a lot of things I write in my head like 90% of the time because I'm an obsessive weirdo like that. Oh. Unfortunately, I really don't know how to fix the audio. Oh god, it really is big buggy, isn't it? This is a new microphone. I don't know if that's the problem. Let's see. Let's just. Uh, let's have. No, wait. Let's. Hmm. I want to drop the resolution because the resolution is not fantastic. Ugh. Ugh. Uh. Hmm. Dang it. I might just need a better computer, honestly. Let's sec. Makes me happy you guys would sit through buggy audio anyway. Just love hearing me talk. Oh. Anyway, let's get back to the drawing, shall we? Oh, I didn't even put the pen down. It, let you know. Okay, let's lower our resolution just slightly. Try and give this thing less stuff to process. As few things going on as possible. Make it easier on the computer to do all the stuff I'm asking it to do. That boob is too high up. It needs to be lower. Random little things, by the way, when it comes to drawing, like, there's all sorts of things I see people when they're learning how to draw or whatnot, like, little mistakes that are made simply because people didn't stop to think about it. I see it a lot with shading in particular, like when people are shading a picture and they put shadows in places where there wouldn't really be a shadow because they didn't stop to realize that that item isn't, like, they'll have an object, but that object is casting a shadow on something that it shouldn't actually be logically casting a shadow on, and I see that a lot. The things like this boob, for example, like this one would be resting up on her leg, but this one would actually be lowered down because this leg is not propping it up. So it should actually kind of go down like that. While this one is up more because this this squishy boob is sitting on her leg, while the other one would not have quite as much of a bump to it because it's not got anything supporting it. However, of course, it depends on whether or not the boobs are real. But all my girls have real boobs. Real boobs, they sag. They're squishy and soft. You know, boob physics 101, people. Gotta have that boob physics. Okay, so let me get. Should get a little bit of a bump from the outfit, though. Drop this boob just a little bit lower. I see a lot of boobs also in pictures people do that defy gravity defying boobs. Which I guess is fine if your character has fake boobs, then congratulations, you did it fantastic. One of the artists that I work with, His boobs hurt my soul sometimes because they're just like they look like balloons that were strapped to a woman's body. Um, they do not look natural at all. They're ginormous and they just like defy gravity. I'm just like, dang it, Martin, why? He's not a bad artist certainly, but his boobs defy all logic and reason. Gravity defying boobs. I like those, you know, all natural boobies. Let's see. Right. Collarbone will be right there. This shoulder's going to drive me up the wall because we get a little bit of the back through it, which may not seem like a big deal, but then I'm going to be stuck here arguing about whether or not the arm is wide enough. Almost right there. Rawr. Legs are so much wider than arms, too. Like, it's funny when you stop to realize just how much wider a person's legs are than their arms. Unless you've got a dude who's, like, really muscled. But generally speaking, I mean, it's obvious as to why, because your legs are supporting your entire body weight on a daily basis, and so they're naturally going to be stronger than your arms. And like men have more upper body strength than women do, but even still, technically, their legs are still stronger than their arms. But women's legs are stronger than men's legs, and men's arms are stronger than women's legs. So that's what they mean when they talk about women having more lower body strength. But even still, in either case, the legs are still going to be stronger by default. Because as heavy as you are, your legs need to be able to lift all of that weight. Well, I guess there's some exceptions, probably. Like some of those like really weird looking bodybuilder dudes. Like, you know, the guy who's just enormous on top of his teeny tiny little legs. And they look all weird and disproportionate. Because they think they're the sexiest beast ever. We're just not gonna comment. Just gonna let you have your fantasies. Muscle muscles. Maybe bring this knee in just a little. Wait, if we're like that. Well, indeed she is. Oh, I I lost I lost 2 viewers. That makes me sad. People make me sad. I'm sorry if the audio is poor. I will find some way to fix that stuff. And if I hope it gets less buggy as we go along. Um, yes, Rouge is my favorite. I love my Rouge. When I was first introduced to Sonic as a kid, I'd say Amy was was my favorite when I was first introduced, and then Rouge became my favorite as I got older. And I think that in good part reflects just age. Like when you're younger, I can see Amy. I can understand why like Amy has more appeal when you're younger. But Rouge is that sexy older woman. You know, I love me my Rouge. Um, uh, um, I know I got this is just a funny little thought, but I've heard people complaining about Rouge's voice. Well, obviously people complain about all the Sonic voice actors for many one reasons, but like Rouge's voice in like Sonic X, for example, I've heard people complain about it. And when I was a kid, I had a friend who kept trying to tell me that Rouge was voiced by a man, which was completely untrue. But that friend also kept trying to tell me that Rouge was the cat because she had catty eyes. Of course, that friend is now a transvestite. Anyway, that is all aside from the point. But for starters, I'll say I never considered Rouge's voice in Sonic X to be really particularly mannish myself. But on a side note, though, I like Rouge having that deeper, sexy older woman voice. Personally, like in my mind, I like the idea of Rouge having that kind of voice rather than having something that's like I've heard complaints that like she sounds too old. You know, she's supposed to be like 18 or whatever. But I have two arguments against that. The first being, I feel like as a character, Rouge is supposed to be older feeling. Like she's supposed to feel like an older character compared to the others, I think. Um, and Knuckles kind of to an extent too, but in a different sort of way. I mean, Sonic Boom made Knuckles really, really, really dumb. He's still a sweetheart, you know. Like Knuckles and Boom is kind of a completely different character, though. Like they made him this sort of lovable oaf instead of being the guy that we had before, which Knuckles previously, although he was not the sharpest tool in the shed, and he could be naive or overly trusting sometimes. He also, and he had a short temper. He had a very short temper. Like these were all things that we understood as part of him. But there was another factor to Knuckles' character that was like a really integral part of his character that didn't translate at all into the Boom universe, which I found kind of unfortunate. And that was the fact that Knuckles represented that sense of responsibility. You know, like if you're talking about like the maturity of characters, ironically, I'd say Knuckles was actually really mature. Was he the smartest? No, but I ultimately chalk that up to him being poorly educated. There's a little bit of a difference between being uneducated and being stupid. And I don't think Knuckles was stupid. Knuckles' naivety when it came to other people was because he hadn't been around very many people in his life. Like he lived on Angel Island completely alone for most of his life, and so when you consider that fact, of course he's going to be naive around other people because he's not been around other people very often. And of course he's not going to understand a lot of like high tech, you know, gizmo talk from Tails or whatever because he's not been exposed to that stuff. You know, he probably survived all those years on Angel Island hunting and fishing and maybe even growing crops and stuff, you know? Like Knuckles would have been living off the land and surviving in a very uh, um, primitive style. So I don't think that Knuckles was really stupid as much as he was just uneducated. But like I said, when it comes to maturity, Knuckles I think was actually a really mature character in that he was very dedicated to a particular thing. Like he had this sense of responsibility and honor that Sonic didn't have. And so although he may be easier to fool, like when you put Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles together, Tails is the brains of the outfit, of course, and whatnot. I think Knuckles serves more purpose than just being this big tough powerhouse. I think that he has more of a function in the relationship dynamic than just, you know, he hits stuff. I think that Knuckles was also a character that brought in this sense of responsibility and obligation, whereas Sonic is very carefree and oftentimes kind of avoids responsibilities that aren't fun. Like he saves the day and he's the hero and whatnot. And he never has any qualms with bashing at robots, but we've all seen Sonic in positions where he's had to do something that wasn't very fun, and he kind of avoids that like the plague. Um, like he doesn't mind risking his life, but if the obligation was to do something boring and like if you asked Sonic to be the guardian of the Master Emerald, he would be bored out of his skull, and I don't think that he could stay. I think he would lose his mind, and eventually he would like run off and then or like cause some kind of problem. Granted, not to say that the emerald hasn't been stolen under Knuckles' watch. I mean, obviously, but I think that Sonic would crack a whole lot faster in that same situation. Um, so I think that of the three of them, Knuckles was actually the most mature, but just the least educated. And he did have a short temper, but again, I kind of also equate that to just lack of being with other people. Like, a lot of Knuckles' flaws are easily equated to just living in isolation. He doesn't have a lot of patience for other people because he's not had to deal with other people much throughout his life. Like, most of his life, he's been able to do everything on his own and been completely independent and not had to rely on others. So it makes sense that he has kind of a short patience for other people and whatnot. And and then, you have Boom, and I love Knuckles in the Boom cartoon series. He's adorable and he's funny, and he's had moments that have made me laugh my eyes off. He's also had moments, unfortunately, that have made me cringe. Just like not even funny, just cringe-worthy moments. But I like him in Boom for the most part. It's just that the Boom Knuckles is a very, very different. And the other funny thing though too is that while Knuckles was turned into this lovable oaf, Boom also made Sonic more mature, which is kind of ironic. Like, that mature character element that Knuckles had, I think ended up being just mushed into Sonic instead, in favor of making Knuckles this lovable oaf, which is kind of interesting. Like, because what we see of Sonic in the Boom universe, he seems to be, well, he still has some of those classic, he still has a lot of his classic character traits. Boom Sonic feels a little bit more like an adult to me. Like, he feels a little bit more responsible than what we're used to. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm not against the idea of Sonic getting more mature as, you know, but he feels like a slightly older character, I think. And of course, Tails has always been very mature for his age, despite it all. And I love seeing Tails make those sort of smart ass remarks that you get in Boom. Those are always great. Tons of fun. Let's see. Rubber. Only 2 people watching now. Bummer. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I'm just gonna talk. Because that's what I do during live streams is I talk. I really, really want to know what I can do about the audio. That bugs me. Let's see, that's still... Let's... I guess it sounds like it's a little bit cleaner now. What do you guys think? Has it cleaned up for you? Is it better now? Anyway, well, I'm just gonna keep talking because why not? So as I was the maturity, yeah. So like I said, for those who don't know, when it comes to like Sonic shipping, I think my favorite Sonic couple, my Sonic OTP would be Knuckles and Rouge, and the big reason it's just I love their dynamic. They're adorable together. They fight like an old married couple, and I think it's just the cutest thing. Um, but it is also like what I was saying about how Knuckles kind of feels like the more mature male character, and then Rouge also feels like the more mature female character. So I think that's also part of what makes that work. Um, uh, Shadow and Rouge is neat for what it is, but I feel like Shadow himself needs a very specific kind of person. Like I think that Shadow to have a romantic relationship would require somebody with a lot of patience. Like, I think that Rouge would be in a relationship with Shadow if she got that far, and then at a certain point, just give up and throw her hands in the air and be like, this does not benefit me at all. You are a whiny, needy little bitch, and I'm done. Like, I think of Shadow's kind of immature, actually, in a lot of ways. And I think that in a relationship, he would be either neglectful, like just wouldn't really contribute anything, or would be downright needy, or possibly even a little bit of both. Um, Dang it. Why you gotta glitch on me like that? No, I did not mean to open the thing. Hi. Um, but yeah, I think that I think that Rouge would eventually end the relationship when she realized that it wasn't really healthy. Like, Rouge is a very strong, independent female. She works with guys a lot, and I don't think that she would stay in a relationship with somebody who wasn't really giving her anything in return. I think she would acknowledge that the relationship wasn't benefiting her and then just leave. At a certain point, like I don't think she would put up with that shit for very long. Like Shadow would require a girl who is incredibly patient or or incredibly desperate. Like, I mean, the other hand is that he hooks up with a girl and then she's just so like she has so little self-esteem that she stays with him despite whatever he might do, just because she feels validated by being with this person that is sought after and attractive and powerful and whatnot. Which really, you should never stay in a relationship because you need the self confidence from the relationship. You should have your own self confidence that comes from you, and be confident in your own abilities and not need other people to validate you. But I think that Shadow could end up in one of those kinds of relationships. And I don't think he would even notice how toxic it was to the person he was with. Like, I don't think it would be deliberate, but I don't think he would notice. Um, it's not impossible to do like a romantic story with Shadow or give him a love interest. I think it's just you have to think about where his character stands, like when it comes to his level of maturity. Um, Sonic is, I like to think of Sonic as being kind of a womanizer, which is something sort of supported by the comics. But that, he has, like, he's never trying to hurt girls or anything, but I think that I think Sonic is kind of that pickup artist who has an easy time getting a girl, but has a little bit of a difficult time maintaining a relationship. Um, I mean, he's not the most mature person in the world, but he's a sweet guy, so, you know. Um, and when it comes to Son Amy shipping, um, I think really the big reason why Sonic doesn't go for Amy like, I think one of the big reasons, the big things that got between that actually becoming a thing until Boom, like Boom changed the Sonic and Amy relationship dynamic completely. But previously, I think that the big thing between them was that like Sonic seemed to, there were moments where he seemed to find Amy attractive or just seemed to really enjoy being around her. But these always seemed to be moments in which she wasn't fawning over him usually. And I think that was really the big thing, is that I think that Sonic liked her as she was as a person, because she's cute and she's tough in a fight and she has that strong independent woman vibe going for her when she's just being herself. But I think that the way that she pursued him so actively was the big turn off. So it's like when she's not chasing after him, she's cute and attractive, but when she's obsessing over him, it's just feels really desperate or whatever. Like, there are guys in my life that have been into me, and I might have reciprocated that had it not been for the fact that they made it so obvious. Like, had they not been so desperate to get with me, then maybe I might have actually reciprocated it because they were nice guys. and it's not that I didn't like them, but that the level to which they pursued made them unattractive. And I think that's what happens with Amy, is that she's just so overbearing about it. And Sonic is the kind of person who wants to be able to go and run around and be free and do his own thing. And Amy's bad enough when they're not in a relationship. Imagine being in a relationship and her being that obsessive. Um, but I think as Amy gets older and gets more mature, like, I like to think of Boom Amy as being the same character, but just a little bit older. Where, like, she still has that crush on Sonic, but she's a lot more subtle about it. Like, she's not so overt all the time. Um, and where she spends more time focusing on her own personal interests rather than just obsessing over him all the time. And it's funny too, because like Amy and Boom is pretty much the same character we've already seen. Like, she wasn't actually changed very much at all. The only thing that was changed is that she's not obsessing over Sonic as much. But all of the hobbies and interests that we see her having in Boom, we've already seen her express similar kinds of interests in other cartoons. Like, I remember episodes of like Sonic X where she was like baking pies and stuff, and doing other things of that nature. Like, so Boom Amy seems to still keep in line with a lot of what we've understood to be elements of her personality and interests. But there's more of a focus on her interests and hobbies and whatnot. And her interest in Sonic is more of like a background element to her character rather than being made a defining feature, which I like. I think that's nice. I like that Amy's calmer in both. Maybe just stretch her out just a little bit more that way. Bring it back just a tad. I like classic Amy. I like Amy when she is mature. So yeah, that's so you get. I think that Amy, just as a character, has just sort of aged as the series goes. Like, regardless of what the show or the game or whatever, regardless of what the company says her current age is, I think that we can all see Amy as having matured in a very kind of steady and actually fairly logical way for her character as the years have gone by. I like Amy either way. I think she's a good character. I think there's a lot of good things that could be said about her. Um, I think that there are a lot of, not just in Sonic and fiction in general, that get hate from people out of a misunderstanding of what their character is about. Like, I see people hate on characters, but their reasoning seems like they don't really understand the point of the character in the first place. Like, I've seen Amy, for example, get hate, like, oh, she's so annoying, no. I'm like, Amy is what she is for the story purposes, and she has her own character arcs and whatnot. Like, I think that the thing is that you can have a character that, if you met them in real life, right, but that doesn't make them a bad character. Actually, quite the contrary. Generally speaking, usually any good character is going to evoke an emotional response, but that response isn't always positive. Like, sometimes you hate a character. Like, you just absolutely can't stand them. And you're supposed to. The fact that you hate them means that the character's being written well. Um, Granted, there's also, like, a problem, too, where when you hear the term, like, Mary Sue get tossed around, a lot of times the characters people describe as Mary Sue, the real core problem with these characters is the fact that the writer desperately wants the audience to like this character. And they forget the fact that, like, people don't need to like a character on a personal level for that to be a good character. And sometimes people will read stories with characters they can't stand because it's a good story and that character is still well written, and they hate the character because they're well written. And because they well fit into that particular role. I have characters that, I don't care whether the audience likes or hates them. I know who they are as people, and I feel what's really important is that they're consistent. And so you can like them or dislike them all you want, but you can't tell me that they're a bad character because I'm consistent about it. And I think with characters like, Amy, for example, people complaining, oh, she's so annoying. Amy is consistent. The writers are generally relatively, like, if you watch, say, Sonic X, and some people hate it, personally, I still kind of like Sonic X and felt like it had its good moments. It certainly had its stupid moments, but I think it had little gems of good stuff in there. So I don't think it was a bad show completely. I do still hate Chris Thorndike. And when I talk about good bad characters and bad characters, I guess Chris was written consistently, but God, was he an obnoxious character? I don't want to say he was a bad character because I don't think he was actually poorly written. I think, but the problem is that like he didn't really serve any real function. To be perfectly honest, every story arc that I can think of from Sonic X would have worked just as well, if not better, without Chris there. Like, you didn't need Chris in the story to have the conflicts that we had. Chris felt just kind of like shoehorned in there because I guess the writers decided they needed a human character. But I think that if you were going to do a human character, you would want to do something that maybe was a little bit more relatable to people. I mean, I think Chris was like, if you're going to do a human character in a Sonic story, the human character should probably be somebody that the audience uses to, the audience can relate to, because the rest of the characters are all like furry and talking animal people from an alien planet, So we don't necessarily connect with them as quickly or as easily because they're from a very different world. The human should be that character that allows us to more easily connect with the rest of the cast in the world and whatnot, like serve as a proxy, like we experience the world through them. But I don't think Chris really served that function. I think that all Chris really served to do was add little bits of filler here and there and just send Sonic fans into a rage every time he popped onto the screen because he was just a really obnoxious character. Um, like I said, it's fine to have characters that are annoying because they're supposed to be annoying. Like, I think Book-kun was supposed to be annoying, but I actually kind of like Book-kun because he could be kind of cute and kind of funny sometimes. So I didn't actually have any problems with him there. And that was a character that was intended to be annoying. So, I think it's a matter, like, but, but yeah, Chris wasn't actually, he wasn't, I think, actually a horrible character in the sense that he was inconsistently written, but he also had, like, almost no personality when you stop to think about it. He was very flat. Like, he was a very two-dimensional character. I can't think of really anything about Chris that was unique to him as a person. He was the most generic protagonist type character ever. And then on top of it, they gave him this, he comes from this really rich family. So, like, if the audience was supposed to relate to him, well, you just threw that out the window when you made this kid, like, live in a mansion with, like, a mom who's an actress and a dad who's this eccentric, like, billionaire fucking, like, businessman or whatever, corporate leader or whatever the hell he was. Like, you threw out any potential for him to be relatable when you did that. And you can have a rich character that has relatable qualities, but in order to do that, you actually need to give them a personality, which Chris just didn't really seem to have. Granted, there are people in the real world who just don't have a whole lot of stuff that's noteworthy about them at first glance. Although, to be honest, pretty much anybody you meet, like, I meet people and I ask them to tell me about themselves or their life or whatever, and a lot of, oh, well, there's nothing interesting to say about me. And that's almost never true. Pretty much everybody has something about them that makes them interesting if you get to know them well enough. But Chris just, for all the time that we saw him, and then they went back to Sonic's world, and they had Chris show up again because reasons. There was really no reason why Chris needed to be in the story. He was just there to be there. And he could have been really cool if they had allowed him to show up as the adult version. Like, the adult Chris that they set up actually looked like an interesting character, and I would have loved to see that, but no, they turned him into a child because reasons. And child Chris, like, although they made him a little bit more mature, he still felt like a child. Um, like, he was still rendered pretty useless most of the time. Um, I'm going on a rant. Let's see. So, ranting about good versus bad characters. I think an example with my own stuff, I have this character Jasper in the Author Society, and the first issue of that is actually nearly finished, and we'll be doing a Kickstarter for it real soon. Um, there's a character in the Author Society named Jasper, and he's this gray cat character. He's kind of short, kind of scrawny. Hell, I can pull up a picture of him for you. Um, the thing about Jasper is, now I myself like Jasper as a character. Like, I've had him. The Author Society is a series that, like, I started. The earliest concepts for it were things that I came up with when I was in junior high, and over the years, it has developed and culminated into what I have now, which I have the whole series planned out. Characters. Here we go. Here's a picture of him. But so there's Jasper, everybody. But the thing about Jasper is that at the studio, Jasper has become kind of a running gag. Like, it has become a meme amongst the studio to just make fun of Jasper, like, at any possible opportunity. You see, my editor hates Jasper. Like, just can't stand this character. Not because he's a bad character or poorly written character. In fact, he's even confessed that Jasper is actually a pretty relatable or realistic character. But that Jasper represents a kind of person that he just can't stand in real life, and that's why the character annoys him so much. And that's, like, if you're going to have a person not like a character, it should be for reasons like that. Like, if a person doesn't like a character, it should be because the character strikes a personal chord with them, not because the character was poorly written. Jasper is this short, scrawny guy, really. Heck, if you compare him to the other main male characters in the series, a line up here, where he's not very, like, see, here are the other two major male characters right here. Look at them, and this is, like, roughly how tall they are compared to each other. Look at them, and then look at Jasper. These guys, Jasper. Like, he's kind of underwhelming compared to other males in the series. He's short, he's scrawny, kind of feminine looking even a little bit. And the thing with Jasper tends to be the running theme with his characters. Um, he's always trying to overcompensate. He's always trying to be this big, intimidating leader type character, and it really just kind of fails. It ultimately feels like a chihuahua barking at a mastiff, like, and it's not that he can't be a good leader. He's an intelligent person, but he tries to intimidate people when that really just doesn't work. It ends up being laughable, actually, kind of pathetic. Um, so, but BJ can't stand kinds of guys annoying, but there are plenty of dudes in the real world that are very much like that. They're constantly trying to be these big, tough, manly dudes when they just don't know how. It's not even that they couldn't be. Like, a guy can be small and still be kind of manly and macho, or at least, get ladies or whatever. But but you kind of have to understand your own personal strengths and weaknesses. And Jasper mostly just tends to come across like he's trying way too hard. Um, okay. Looks like we're ready for colors. Yay. Let's see, how do I want to go about doing this? Eh. Eh. Dang it, Sai. Stop glitching on me. Give me a minute. Hey, 5 people. Yay. Anybody got anything that they'd like me to hear me muse about? You can ask questions about any of the projects that I've been working on. You could ask my opinion on whatever. Just chat with me about whatever you like while I'm working. Let you sit and think about that. You are gonna be a bitch. Rar. So yeah. Talked about Jasper, talked about Chris. Chris Thorndyke. How you send people into a rage. I just it wouldn't have been so bad if he just was given an opportunity to actually do something that contributed to the story beyond the occasional contrivancy, I guess. I just don't feel like he contributed anything really of merit. He could have been more involved and actually played more of an active role, but I just feel like he was kind of useless and never really fully developed. He could have been useful later on, but then they decided to make him useless again, even though they set it up like he was going to be more helpful. Because, like, oh, hey, look, he learned martial arts. Well, that does him no good now that he's stuck in a child's body again and has, like, way less physical strength. Uh, he got smarter. He can invent some stuff, which I think was helpful in, like, one episode. And I think that's pretty much the only time they even used that. Like, why? Why did you set him up like he was gonna be a helpful character and then render him completely impotent yet again? Must you be so cruel? At that point, I just feel bad for the character because at that point, it's like the writers just shitting on him, kind of like the Spike thing in MLP. Although Spike did recently get an episode that was actually a pretty good Spike episode. And it was nice seeing some more of the dragons. I feel like that episode still didn't quite solve my problem with Spike's situation. Like, I like that it addressed the whole dragon thing, and we got to see an example in the show of how, like, not all dragons are these horrible, greedy monsters. They are intelligent creatures, and they do have a culture and a society of their own. But I still feel like this my bigger issue is still not really being addressed. That is the fact that I don't feel like Spike can just forever continue going on, like, completely ignoring the fact that he's not a pony. Like, he can live like a pony all he wants, but the truth is, at the end of the day, he's not, and there's just, like, the Spike and rarity thing. I don't think that works for a wide variety of reasons. For starters, the age difference. I it's just the age makes it kind of weird. Sorry. But the other thing aside from it is that I just don't think Spike could make a relationship work with a pony. I mean, to be honest, given how big dragons are supposed to get, I'm pretty sure Spike's not even sexually mature. You know, like, just saying. And by the time he is big and he is matured, he'd probably be big enough that it would be difficult with a pony. And by the time he's fully grown, it would be impossible without killing them. Um, so, and I hate to put a dirty image in your mind, but that you you gotta stop and think about that because it's true. There's just no way around that one. I mean, I know I like the Fluttercord ship, and you'll be like, but Fluttercord is two people of different species, so why is Fluttercord okay and Rare Spike isn't? Like, why is it not okay for Spike to be with a pony, but it's okay for Discord to be with a pony? Well, simple answer: Discord is a shapeshifter. He can turn into anything. So I'm pretty sure that there's not going to be any real logistical problems with him actually having sex with a pony. I'm pretty sure he can have sex with anything he wants. And on another note, Discord is, as far as characters go, he shares a lot in common with Loki, with Norse mythology. And Loki was famous for, having babies with gods, giants, horses, rocks, whatever. Loki pretty much fucked anything and everything, alive or inanimate, didn't really matter. Um, and given that, I just kind of feel like Discord adheres to that same set of rules. Like, he could probably produce offspring with literally anything under the sun. Um, and it, you know, because it's Discord, um, reality bending powers. Um, this there is something though that I find annoying when I see people create Fluttercord kids or just Celestia next gens or whatever. Um, and the one problem I get is people trying to make them look like quote unquote like a Draconequus. I'm pretty sure the word Draconequus was invented specifically to describe Discord. Like, I don't think there was a race of these beings. If there was, that would be horrifying. I mean, if there was ever a time where there was a race of Draconiqui, that would be terrifying. I'm pretty sure Discord's the only one. Now, he came from somewhere, obviously. Like, somebody gave birth to him or created him or whatever. I kind of fall into this theory that Discord was created by some sort of godlike figure a long time ago. Um, and that there may have even been other creatures that were similar to him that this godlike figure also created. But I don't think those other creatures would have actually looked like Discord too terribly much, aside from maybe being a mixture of different animals. But I don't think they would have shared that long, lanky figure specifically. Like, I think that snake-like body is something that is distinctive to him. But when it comes to like next gens for Discord, if you're using mythology as a reference for how this character would function within the world, Loki's children almost never looked like him. Like, a lot of Loki's children either A, took after whatever species the mother or sometimes father, it kind of depends, because Loki would sometimes turn into a female and give birth to other creatures because he's a weirdo like that. Um, but oh, train of thought. Damn it. But Loki's kids didn't usually actually resemble him too terribly much. And part of this is because Loki himself is a shapeshifter. I mean, what are his kids supposed to resemble? Um, and he had children frequently, like, it usually came out one of two ways. Either A, the child took after the mother species, whatever, or B, the child was completely random. Like, Loki had a wife who was a giantess, so she would have looked human-like, right? She was supposed to be really pretty, too. And yet, he and his wife managed to produce a snake. The world serpent is one of Loki's children. Now, how you get one human-like looking character and another human-like looking character, and then they produce a snake, is completely beyond me. But that's how Loki worked. And the other half the time, they were kids that looked kind of human-like and were pretty normal looking, but they were still, honestly, you don't hear stories about his human-looking children usually because they were boring and no one cares. But But I think the Discord would apply that same set of rules that, like, if he has kids with a pony, most likely those children will either be ponies, and they may have small differences that make them look odd, but for the most part look mostly normal. Or those children are going to come out some completely random thing that doesn't resemble either parent even remotely. Like, I don't know, he gets with Celestia or Fluttershy or whatever, and they have like a dragon or like a giant spider or something. Which, God, would that make parenting really, really complicated real fast? I mean, imagine Celestia or Fluttershy being a mother to like some weird ass animal. Like, our kid is this giant drooling monstrous looking thing. But we love him anyway. I don't know. Fluttershy might actually not have a hard time with that. That might actually be kind of easy for her to cope with. I think it would be weirder for Celestia. I think that maybe Fluttershy would be able to get over raising some weird animal creature, because Fluttershy. Collins, Sonic Reborn. Did you want to hear? So, somebody mentioned. I asked earlier about if you guys had anything you'd like to hear me talk about. Somebody mentioned conventions. I will say, if you want to see me at a convention, pretty much just attend a comic show in Ohio, and you've got a pretty good chance of seeing me. We go to a lot of the like indie comic cons and stuff in Ohio. We uh, so I'll start making posts on like DeviantArt and whatnot more actively about which conventions I'm going to be going to, but mostly I'm stuck doing shows in Ohio for the most part right now, just because we don't have quite enough money to be going out of state too terribly often, except maybe like Kentucky. I think we did a show in Kentucky a little while back. Um, but mostly we've been in Ohio. Um, so yeah, as as I go by and we get more money and the studio gets more funding, we'll be able to go to more shows further out and more of the larger conventions and whatnot. Uh, I've been told that I am an absolute gem at conventions. I get, I get. Melanie says I'm a saint at conventions. So, where, what, where in Ohio? I actually live in like Dayton, around the Dayton area, and a lot of the shows that we go to are around that area. But some of them are close by, some of them are further out. Like I said, I'll let you guys know what the next convention I'll be going to is. Heck, I could probably even check that. What the next show I'll be attending is. Um, on another note, too, I usually go to those shows with my colorist. She's the head colorist for the studio now. I'm gonna bring up her DeviantArt to show you because she is awesome, and you guys should totally watch her and tell your friends because she's super cool. She's a good friend of mine, and she's almost always at the shows with me. We have other artists with the studio, but there is less of a guarantee that they'll be at any given show for various reasons. Um, rar. I should just do. Her DA handle was Melbaka, and she is super cool. She has a lot of adoptables too, if you're into that kind of thing. So here we go. This is one of her furry characters. I have converted her to furryism. but yeah, she's really a really kick-ass colorist. She's done some really cool stuff. And when she does furries, like when she goes all out on the colors for furries and stuff, do she can do some really cool fur texture too. Like his something. You see all the little furry texture. They look so fluffy. You probably can't see actually because the resolution's poor. But you need to check her out because she is super cool. And you need to go follow her and look at her beautiful art and adopt something from her because she is cute little adoptables too. So yeah, plug for her. Um, let's see. So my editor said he's actually not 100% sure what the next show we're going to is because he says there's a couple of different ones we might be going to soon here. But I will definitely, when we know what show, when I know what the next show I'll be at is, I will definitely make posts online to let you guys know what events and what conventions I'm going to be attending. Recently we were at Gem City Comic Con, and that was a lot of fun. Um, I do commissions too at the table at shows and stuff. The like $5 commissions and stuff at the table. Um, so yeah, I'll actually, let me put a link to her DeviantArt in the chat. Um, oh dang, it's being super buggy again. Dang, oh god. I don't know why the audio bugs out on you guys. I am sorry. I'm gonna try and find a way to fix that issue for next time. And I'll definitely do more live stream if you guys want me to. Kipper plays games. Oh hey! What does that mean? What does oh hey mean? What are we oh hey? Okay, that's rar. I'm gonna actually change the color to that. Remember this thing? This was what we were doing. I'm gonna go back to this. Hmm. Sorry, YouTube is dumb from For Affinity. Hello. Hello, Kipper. Love when you live stream. Well then, I will try and live stream more often. How about I try and get in the habit of doing it like regularly on the weekends or something? Like I'll pick a day out of the week and then try and make that like a live stream day for everybody. About 70% again. If I make the wings slightly transparent like this, then it allows me to do more poses. Like it increases the range of poses I can do with the character without obscuring her figure. I love the idea of giving Rouge wings like this that just like flaps of skin. I like that idea a lot. But one of my problems with it was um, that it poses some complications when it comes to like you don't want to hide Rouge's figure when you draw her because as Rouge and her sexy body is a big element of her character, and so you want her just to look sexy. And so I was conflicted because it was like, oh well, and I've just now thought of the idea that like if I just make them a little translucent like that, then that means that I can have poses where her wings might be obscuring her body a little bit, but you'll still be able to see her figure through the wings, so it won't completely obscure that nice, beautiful figure that she has. You'll get to see her still a little bit. And that means that I can do a wider range of poses with the character and have them look good. These are the things you think about when it comes to character design. Think about how they function. Like, if you have a sexy character, you don't want some outfit that's going to hide their figure, you know? There's a lot of things that come into play when it comes to the visual design of characters. It's kind of a there's sort of a science to it, although it's difficult to explain all of it. It kind of depends on, well, it depends very heavily on what kind of character you want to do. Like the best kind of character designs have a combination of functionality and style. Like you want something that functions to serve that functions for the character in some way, but also looks nice. And particularly, like you can have outfits that are sexy looking, and the sexy might be like you can have Rouge is a fighter, but I'm drawing her here in stilettos, and some people will be like, "But that's ridiculous. Why would somebody who's going to go into battle wear stilettos?" Well, I'll tell you, because Rouge likes looking sexy. There's nothing wrong with having characters that enjoy looking attractive or wearing sexy outfits because they like being sexy. Sometimes that is all the reason a character needs to wear something sexy. And it says something about their personality when they wear stuff that is fashionable over stuff that is maybe more practical. Um, I think the only real problem is when people take a character that isn't supposed to be sexy and then give them that sort of form over function kind of design, and it doesn't work because that's not their character, you know. If I took like Annabeth or something and I put her in an outfit where she was super sexy looking, but it was totally impractical for combat. That would not suit her character at all because that's not the kind of character she is. I made a video before about character design and talked mostly about personality, and it is true. The like personality is the really big key factor in character design, and to be honest, you can't really figure out what your character looks like until you know what kind of person they are. Or at the very least, if you're just doodling and you design something that looks cool and you want to make a character out of it, you should stop and think about why they look that way. Why do they wear these things? What do they mean? Um, as visual design should the thing is a character's visual design should tell you what kind of person they are. Like when a character walks onto the screen, you should get an idea of what kind of person they are very quickly just by looking at them. Now sometimes character designs are deliberately misleading. Like a character is designed to look like say this character looks cute and sweet and innocent, but it turns out they're actually super evil. And that's fine if it's deliberate. But when Rouge steps into a scene, you know what kind of person she is because she's sitting there wearing her sexy outfits with her big old boobies all out, just like, look at me. I know I'm sexy. You know I'm sexy. You want me. Come get me. And it's great because that's a character that knows what it is. Actually, a lot of the characters in Sonic are well designed in that regard, in that you can tell a lot about them just on first glance. Now a lot of their designs are kind of simple, but that's not a bad thing. Simple and iconic is always something worth going for, and a lot of famous video game characters throughout history are not very complicated in their designs, but they are iconic. Like Mario is simple looking, but he's effective and memorable in his design. Sonic's design isn't complicated, but it does clue you in on what kind of character this is pretty quickly. He has this kind of sporty looking shoes and whatnot, and he's blue, which has an impact on how you perceive the character. Like certain colors are associated with certain things. That's the thing, like, when it comes to visual design for a character, the visual design should be a reflection of their personality, not just whatever looks cool. I mean, don't don't disregard what looks cool and just be like, oh, well, I can't. It's okay to do things sometimes that aren't terribly functional, so long as there's a reason for them. Like, um, I've got a character who's supposed to be living out in the ghettos in this really gritty, hard to survive environment, and yet she's wearing like stiletto heels and latex and whatnot. And it's like, why? Why would she wear that out in such a dangerous environment where she frequently ends up having to fight gangsters and stuff? Why? Because as a character, she likes being sexy. She is the kind of character who would rather use her gender to her advantage when possible. And although her outfit may not seem like the most combat ready thing in the world, it does serve a purpose in that it does two things. One, when the character steps onto the scene, you know what kind of character she is when you look at her, because that outfit says 1,000 words. And secondly, as far as if you want a practical use for it in combat, guys are pigs. I'm sorry, but it is kind of true. Don't get me wrong, I love boys and all. I got nothing against him. But it's hard for a guy not to stop and notice when a girl is wearing an outfit that is really sexual looking. Something super sexy or revealing is likely to get them distracted, and statistically speaking, men actually have faster reaction time than women. However, their reaction time slows down when they are um, aroused, you could say, or sexually distracted. Show them pretty things, pretty boobies, and their reaction speed slows dramatically. So as a girl with a naturally slower reaction time, if you say make yourself look all pretty to distract the guys around you, then that actually gives you levels the playing field and gives you a little bit of an advantage. So I mean, it's not there is actually some practical use to a girl dressing sexy on the battlefield. it isn't just completely mindless fan service. There is actually some use to it. Um, and even if it was just mindless fan service, that's not always a bad thing. There's nothing wrong with characters looking sexy. Personally, I think everybody in comics should be attractive unless the story demands that they be otherwise. Unless we're talking about like Deadpool or something who's supposed to be ugly. And even then Deadpool's still kind of sexualized sometimes. Like so but unless the story demands they be ugly, I think that it's okay, you know, sexy characters. So long as you do it with both men and women. That's my one thing. Also I hear people complain about women being objectified in comics or fiction or whatever. Men are objectified as like you wouldn't believe in comics, but when men are objectified, people just like look the other way, like I don't know what you're talking about. And I hear people make this argument like, oh, but it's different when men are when they do like muscular men and skin tight outfits and whatnot. Oh no, that's just a power fantasy for men. Like, I'm sorry, but no. Power fantasy my ass. You know, the people who like those pictures the most, who really appreciate those pictures of super buff guys and in in outfits that show off their better features. Gay men and women. Don't lie. Don't lie. Okay? Power fantasy my ass. There's nothing wrong with wanting to see pretty people in sexy outfits though. It's it's a natural part of being a human being. There's nothing wrong with it. I can objectify men all I want. And women. I objectify them both. Because human beings are beautiful creatures. And sex is a beautiful, beautiful thing. Anyway. Oh, maybe I should adjust that because that seems like a bit too heavy for where it is. There we go. I'd say that's not a bad looking wing. I don't know if I'm actually going to finish this tonight, given the thing kind of slows. Haha, girls rule. Yes, we do. What state are you in? I couldn't understand you before. I'm in Ohio. Audio is increased like 1,000%, so bueno. Okay, good. Increased audio. Um, so yeah, my thoughts on the objectification of women in comics. I say objectify away. Just give me my sexy men too. All the sexy men. And I got a guy in the Authors Society, a male character who never wears a shirt. Like ever. He's just got a jacket and then his bare chest exposed. And he's like super buff, right? And it's just funny because people are a lot more likely to complain about female characters in the comic being objectified. But I highly doubt anybody is ever going to even mention the fact that I have a buff dude running around shirtless all the time. Like, it's unlikely anyone's even going to think about that. Like, objectification. He is probably the most objectified character in the whole series, and it's a dude. He's like blatantly obvious fan service objectification of the male body, and it's unlikely anyone will ever notice or care. I just think that's funny. Fingernails. Yeah, if anybody is wondering, this purple on her arms, this is a costume or anything. The idea was that the wings are purple, right? So I've done versions of this or whatever where the wings were flesh toned and it felt awkward to me. I like the purple wings. So essentially, this purple skin that the wings are made out of, it covers the arms as well. So her arms and hands are purple, and it's not fur. Well, there might be some fur there. I don't know, it might be some purple fur, but that's their wings are mostly fleshy. So it's mostly just an off-colored flesh. Like, I mean, some animals have like black skin and whatnot, so it's not too on the pale. But we're also talking about a series where a character can have blue hair, which there were no animals on the planet with blue hair. So I think you can accept the idea of a chick with purple skin. But not all her skin is purple, just the wings and arms and on her back. Like if like it comes to a point on her back, like I'm gonna do a little sketchy here on the side. Like if you saw Rouge's back, it would be like, here's her hips, your butt, right? Your shoulder blades are around here. Here's the spine. Here's the arm, right? Here's another arm going up because, but like the purple skin starts around here, like where her tail would be. Well, then you just got her tail, and then it goes like this, and like this on the arms. So it's built kind of like it's set up kind of like a flying squirrel or something. Um, I like this idea because it makes her more bat-like. Because the whole wings protruding from her shoulder blades, although it looks fine, I don't have any problem with that design visually. I think this one actually is something that could maybe be more easily explained um, biologically. Like this feels something like a little bit more realistic. Like if you had a humanoid bat creature, this feels more like what it would actually look like. Not gonna bother giving her a bat nose though, because why bother? Not to say that there are species of bat which their noses actually aren't that bad looking. Like, um, but some bats' noses are very unattractive, and that would certainly hurt Rouge's sexy factor. Although, actually, if I wanted to be cute about it, some bats' noses kind of look a little like a heart, like they're shaped a little heart-like. So suppose if I wanted to be cute, I could just keep her nose real small, but make it like pink and heart-shaped. And that makes the reference to her being a bat, but it would also be cute and not like some hideous monstrosity thing. I could maybe try that. You can leave a comment in the chat. Let me know what you think about that idea. I'll give you your thoughts. We might try that out. So there's those fingernails painted, of course, painted pink. Why does the audio mess up at the wrong time? I don't know. I'm sorry about the audio problems. Like, there we go. Oh, oh God. Oh God, that sound. Dang, dang, that sound. Oof, that hurts. I need to find a way to fix that. I don't know. I don't know how to fix that. I will find a way, damn it. Alright, let's make these nails nice and shiny. Oh, um, that was the wrong tool. conflicted between doing when I use fewer layers, I feel like I get something more organic, but there's more room for error. So I feel conflicted. Like when I layer things, my editor complains that it looks like a plastic toy sometimes when I'm painting or I'm doing lightless art. That doesn't look very good. That's the wrong tool again. Uh, that looks good. But I will kind of have to do other things behind this arm because of the wings being transparent like that. So let's get on to that leg. I'm progressing so slowly on this thing. Actually, actually normally work. Um, let's see. You sound like a robot. You sound worse than before. Oh, ouch! Just ouch! That's not closed, is it? There we go. Now it should be closed. I'd say that's pretty nice. Nice legs. Let's try to do these. I think that works. Yeah, it's like I'm wearing headphones. That's starting to squish my ears. So, how's the audio sounding now? Is it? Let's see. Is it any better now? It seems to be kind of intermittent. Like it improves for a bit, and then little side. You will actually, now that I think about it, you will technically get to see Rouge very briefly in Chapter 2, but you see her, like, in one panel as a small child. You also see Knuckles as a baby in one panel. I will elaborate more on those characters' stories later, of course. But we do actually get to see them both cameo. I've also debated whether or not this character is only going to get a very little itty bitty bit of a cameo in the series anyway. Um, so for those who were following Reborn, the original version, I had a character who was Sonic's brother, was this hippie guy, played guitar, and traveled around with his drummer, this butch punk chick. Um, and people really liked Mace. They really liked this hippie dude. And I had a lot of really funny stuff I wanted to do with him, but when I redid the Reborn story, I like the new story I have now better because I feel like it's more cohesive. So I don't regret that, but the new story doesn't leave room open to really have that character in there, which I think is a little bit sad that he kind of got left behind because he was actually a pretty fun character. There were a lot of pot jokes. um, but I thought he was a really fun character and did really enjoy some of the ideas I had with him, and I'm somewhat disappointed that I don't feel like I can really do those jokes. Um, I can't make one of the other characters fill his role because he had a position in the story previously that couldn't really be filled by a different character. But he was also kind of a supporting character anyway. Like he wasn't really integral to the rest of the cast beating the bad guy or anything, but rather he was there to play a supporting function. Um, but he was also part of a grander story that's ultimately been scrapped. I guess I can actually tell you what the original story was, since the new story doesn't resemble it as much, and So I guess it might still give some spoilers away. So I guess if you were really, really, but probably not. Anyway, in the original Reborn story, the original story functioned along the lines of these two beings of incredible cosmic power that had been at war for thousands of years, and Sonic ends up being enslaved to one of these two beings as a soldier of sorts, Lord Raku and Anakitana, and he was supposed to help defeat Raku, and this was also tied to what was originally the original idea was just a monstrously big story that spanned multiple generations of characters actually, but I ended up scrapping all of that for a couple of reasons. One, it realistically is just too much. I mean, Reborn now, the new version is much shorter, but still a pretty lengthy story anyway. But that was just a monstrous thing that I would probably never finish. And what I've got now is maybe a little bit more likely to actually see completion, provided I stick with it. You guys keep cheering me on to finish it. Um, but but in the original story idea, um, Sonic's brother Mace was introduced, and he was created in a really roundabout kind of way. Um, the first Sonic fan character ever created was also named Mace, and and he looked very similar to Sonic. We had this like yellow mane fluff around his neck, right? And and I'm like 13 at the time. I'm not exactly like a master character designer yet, and I got this idea to make him related to Sonic to sort of explain why they look so similar. And I was like, well, I don't want to just make him Sonic's son because at the time I'm like a hardcore Sonic shipper, and I wanted to do that couple. And he didn't look anything like Amy, so I couldn't really explain that away as being a Sonic Amy kid. So it's like I'll give Sonic a brother, and I'll make him Sonic's nephew, and I'll kill his dad and just have Sonic raise him, right? Which actually later on, as that developed, was not actually a terrible story concept. And I'll get to where that story went eventually in a minute. Um, but at first, I couldn't come up with a design for Sonic's brother. And I was like, well, he's going to be dead anyway, so it doesn't matter. Because at the time, I was just doing stories with these little next-gen characters I could come up with. So I thought, oh, it doesn't matter what his brother looks like or what his name is, he's dead anyway. So and so out of laziness, I ended up calling Sonic's brother Mace Senior, so there's a senior and a junior. Later down the line, I got the idea to rename the junior into Rock, or rather, rename him, sorry, not Rock, Rhythm. Because having two characters named Mace was just confusing. Um, but the Reborn story prior to this one, the current one is actually like probably the fourth iteration since I got into Sonic when I was young. Um, I think it's worth it though. Looking back on the previous ideas that I had, they weren't necessarily bad ideas, and I can potentially reuse some of the story concepts in other things later on down the line. And none, regardless of where it all ends up, it's still good practice anyway as a writer. So I don't regret the time that was spent on the previous versions, but let's see. I'm gonna lower. No, that's not what I want to do. So that's not really quite it either. As I was at, where was I? God damn it. So anyway, originally we had Reborn had Sonic imprisoned to Anakitana. That's where the collar came from, and the scarred up face was the result of uh, an incident that Anna had actually staged. She staged this event so that she could get so that essentially he would die and she would bring him back and be like, okay, you're my servant now because I saved your life and therefore you're eternally bound to me or whatever in return. And he didn't even find out till later on that the whole thing had been staged by her deliberately so that he would have to work for her. But in any event, the convoluted villain plots aside, and the intention actually with Anna was not to depict her as a villain outright. Like, I wanted her to come across as kind of a bitch, but that you didn't realize just how much of a bad guy she actually was until you got further into the story. Um, so anyway, so the original Reborn, or at least the previous version, ended up being like 5 separate stories that all intermingled with each other. So the plot of the first story, Sonic and the others defeating Lord Raku and Sonic winning back his freedom and all of that jazz. Um, and we had Silver and Blaze from the future, and in the future, Raku's son Lazarus had taken over the world and was this horrible evil dictator. But the twist at the end of Reborn that we find out is that even though Silver and Blaze helped to defeat Lord Raku, the future in which Lazarus had taken over still existed. Um, which leads into the next one, which was a next gen story where we had Rhythm, of course, and Shadow had a couple of kids and whatnot. And Raku returns thanks to some of these cult members. Like, he had a cult of people, these cult followers that worshipped him or whatever, called the Four Kings. And they were going to be alluded to in Reborn, and then in the next book, which was going to be Generations, you get to actually see them more actively, and they, because Raku wasn't killed at the end of Reborn, but rather sealed away. So they release him, and then he's actually really weak in the second one and doesn't do a lot of. He didn't do a lot of the fighting himself in the first one, but he does even less so in the second one. Um, but weakened, he starts trying to amass an army and give killing Anna a second chance, and because he's been trying to kill Anna for thousands of years, and she's been trying to kill him for thousands of years, and that was kind of the whole setup, the whole premise for everything in the first place. And so he's saddling up for a second attempt, and along the way, he'd end up with a number of followers, like Shadow's son and Shadow both ended up working for him under different conditions, of course. Shadow kind of reluctantly, because he was already stuck working for Raku the first time around and knew that this guy was bad business and couldn't really be trusted, but found himself stuck in a position where he had little other choice. His son, on the other hand, was just tricked, just naive, didn't understand. And there was going to be this cool little arc where Shadow eventually dies in the story, and Sonic becomes a sort of surrogate father figure of sorts to Shadow's son. Meanwhile, Sonic's also been raising his nephew, who his nephew's Sonic's brother was supposed to be killed by Raku shortly after Raku's release, which was why Rhythm ended up living with his uncle instead. There was also this little idea about Sonic's brother having been poly, and although he had a wife, he also had two gay boyfriends as well. And this idea that Rhythm's two other dads, quote unquote, at one point had wanted to try and get Connor, could essentially said, no, fuck you, he's my brother. A couple of queers. Sonic in that story was not exactly the nicest guy at every possible opportunity. He's actually kind of ends up being a little bit of the redneck dad. He's still a good guy. He still had a lot of good redeeming qualities to balance that out, I thought. Anyway, so you had all of that business, and Generations also introduces Raku's son Lazarus. Like, Lazarus is born in generations, and we learn a little bit about what Raku is. These species of creatures that I frequently just refer to as the shifters, although their actual title was the Zaktani. They were shape-shifting species, and this shape-shifting species, the males of the species could actually reproduce asexually as well as sexually. So Lazarus is just a carbon copy genetically of his dad. Um, and when asexual reproduction occurs, the offspring will retain some of their parents' memories. Like, so Lazarus can speak a bunch of languages and is born capable of speech and whatnot, and fairly intelligent because he gets that from his father. Um, and so he's kind of a minor villain, however, in Generations. As Generations mostly focuses on the next generation of characters, Sonic's nephew and whatnot, Shadow's son, and all of that, as they end up defeating Raku. But it takes an army this second time around, as Raku kind of builds his own little army, and so Sonic and friends and family all have to work together. And in the big final fight, Knuckles was going to lose an arm and Tails was going to lose an eye. Um, and then Raku is finally killed at the end of it by Rhythm, like, and I don't mean like sealed away, I mean like killed, like the dude was gonna be like lit on fire and die burning and screaming. um anyway, which then would lead into the what was the third part of the story was all this time travel nonsense. So we get to go back to Silver and Blaze and Sylvia and all that mess, where they're still living in this dystopian future ruled by Lazarus. Silver ends up having a child with Sylvia. They had a son named Marcus, who was this autistic inventor genius kid, and they also Silver also ended up having a daughter with Blaze. So that was Sapphire. Um, and so that story was essentially Silver and Sylvia end up dying, and so does Blaze actually, and that leaves Marcus and Sapphire orphaned in this just totally horrible dystopian society. And Marcus raises his sister and invents a time machine essentially called the Paradox Machine, and he creates this device, and then he gives it to his sister. At one point, there's like Lazarus soldiers have been hunting him down for years, and they found him, and as they're breaking in to kill him, he hands the device to his sister, which he's just completed. And he tells her, he's already set in coordinates that will take her back to a previous point in time, and she's supposed to give it to him in the past, so the two of them can go back and prevent Lazarus from ever taking over. So then they go back, and and then that whole story is them in the past trying to get rid of Lazarus, trying to fight him. But in the process, we learn things about Lazarus and about his father that we didn't know before. We start learning little bits and pieces about them. The history, for example, the reason for Raku's wanting to kill Anna so badly. Like, in the first book, you would hear an origin story for these two, and that origin story is still true to an extent. That a long time ago, on the Zaktani homeworld, Anna was revered as a god, but Raku was a mortal in their world that um, essentially challenged God and won through learning a mastery of chaos. And he had become revered as a god after that, but the two of them continued to fight each other for all the years, like ever since that first battle that Anna lost, she never let go of that, and they just continued to fight each other. But we learned later too that Anna ended up killing his entire race, just completely, um, and she used the Mobians to do it. That, like, when the Zaktani fled to Mobius looking for some sanctuary because their homeworld had been destroyed, she manipulated the native Mobians, who were pretty primitive at the time, into just slaughtering the entire race. She convinced them that they were demons and whatnot, which I guess is kind of easy to do when they've got like red eyes and sharp teeth. But hey, um, So you learn some of that in Paradox, which was all the time travel stuff trying to fight Lazarus. Paradox also was gonna bring back Tails' daughter Rose, who dies and reborn. Um, Also, spoiler alert: in the new version of Reborn, Rose lives. So you guys can celebrate that. The people who were upset about knowing that Rose was gonna die, you can feel happy in knowing that in this new version she survives. Um, there is another character that will die that wasn't supposed to die originally, but I'm not gonna say who. It's just gonna have to wait and see. So anyway, but I was just gonna bring Rose back because I felt like it was kind of unnecessarily cruel, all the stuff that I did with the Rose story arc, and I had whatnot. But uh, so time travel nonsense ensues. Uh, and then that ends with Marcus killing Lazarus, and they go back to the future, and the future's all fixed, right? Um, but the last interaction between Lazarus and Marcus is kind of strange, which leads us into the final story. Well, this is still not the final story, actually. This was going to be the next section was going back to this fixed future. Years down the line, Marcus is an old man and the cripple and whatnot, and um, at one point in their timeline, he and Sapphire are moving somewhere or doing whatever, and she starts arguing about how he should probably just dismantle the paradox machine because it's dangerous. But the thing is old and kind of buggy at that point, and in the midst of their arguing and her insisting that the machine is so dangerous it malfunctions and actually sends her back in time, she runs into Lazarus from before they killed him, and then the two of them end up like it glitches again, and the two of them end up in like ancient history back before the Zaktani were wiped out. So now they're on Mobius in the time the Zaktani were still alive, and this whole thing ensues, and Lazarus goes through this sort of redemptive arc where we realize he wasn't really a bad guy per se, but just somebody who never really saw, who was never really given any kind of moral direction. Like, you know, he actually helped to kill his own father because he saw his father as um, a sort of warden. He felt trapped, like he wasn't being given any choices in his life. Which which that happened in the third part, the part with the next gen stuff, and it just sets up the tone of him being this horrible, cruel person. But you realize after the fact that there was kind of actually an almost a kind of understandable reason behind it, because Raku was not a nice guy. Anyway, so God, this is a long story when I say it. Programming using your shit better. Kind of. I can understand you. Robo Alex. Alex, do you like Sally? I don't. Why? Question mark. Alex has been roboticized. I have been on this long tirade. You know what? I will actually go at some point and I will write out the ideas for the original Reborn concept and post after the city, since the new story doesn't follow that. A lot of what was originally there is no longer in the story. That is not going to actually spoil anything for anybody. So I'll actually make that and I'll post it for people to read sometime. Um, do I like Sally? I like Sally. There's nothing wrong with her. She's a good character. Actually, kind of like the Sun Sally ship too, for the most part. I think the real, um, I think the big difference. I like Sun Amy and Sun Sally for different reasons. I don't ship Sun Sally as hard, but I do like Sally. I think she's a good character. She's when she's being written well. Sally is an intelligent and she's a good leader, you know, but what she should be. It's kind of her whole point. Um, she's supposed to be. But I think that I think she's actually a really nice character, and I think that she and Sonic have a nice counterbalance because Sonic is kind of immature, and Sally is that maturity that he's missing. Um, she's the one who tells him off when he's being an ass, and I think that's something funny and something I can appreciate to that. Sonic and Amy are cute, and even in Boom, where Amy's more mature, I still can't describe the relationship as being mature. It still just feels cute, like, aw, look at them, they're so adorable together. And their color schemes work really nice together too, I'm not gonna lie. But with Sonic and Sally, I think there's actually a level of maturity to the relationship that Sonic and Amy doesn't have. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with having a more mature relationship dynamic. Um, I'm not saying one is better than the other. I think it just kind of depends on what you want to see more. Like, if you want to see a story about two characters getting together, right, then you're probably going to do a story with Sonic and Amy that's more sort of young love and cute and whatnot, with the characters being all cute and adorable and all those comic little mushy gooey romantic tropes. But if you want a more mature story that involves two characters who are already in a relationship and deals with some of the more mature elements of a relationship, then I think Sonic and Sally are better for that. If you age Sonic and Amy up, right, and you like project into the future with them being older, you can do a story that's more mature because the characters will be more mature by then. But if you're just going off of the way the characters are currently within canon, Sonic and Sally opens up more opportunities for more mature storytelling, I think, than Sonic and Amy does. Where Sonic and Amy is more cutesy, little, like, teen romance type stuff. So it kind of depends on what story you're more interested in. Um, Me, I've got nothing against the more mature romantic stories. Um, I've not read a ton of the comics though, so I don't really know how much of that potential was used with that couple. Honestly, like, I've read a couple of trades of Sonic, but let's be honest, there's a lot of comics, and reading all of them would be a bit much. But of what I've read, I feel like there's a lot more potential to do mature stories with those two. Um, I don't think, I honestly don't think that one is better than the other in that case. Like, there are a lot of cases where I feel like there's a couple where you take two couples that are commonly butting heads with each other, and a lot of times I feel like there is a better of the two. But in this situation, I feel like both couples are interesting and can be well done in stories if you know what you're doing. I think Sonic and Amy is maybe a little bit weaker when you're talking about couples that have the potential to be real long-term relationships, which is kind of funny considering that I love shipping those two together in long-term relationships. But I'm a dork like that. But but really, it's just because of their age. Like, I think if you take Sonic and Amy and they get together when they're older, like if those two got together and got into a serious relationship several years down the line when they're both older and more mature, then I think it could work and actually work really nicely, with Amy serving as a nice little counterbalance to Sonic. And I think that she could function very similarly to Sally in that regard, in that she could be the more mature of the two, and the one who kind of reins him in. Uh, but with Amy at the way she is now, I think that it would be slightly different. Well, Boom Amy could maybe actually still serve that kind of purpose. But then I think Sally is a good character. I like Sally. I got no problems with her. I know there's a lot of Sun Amy shippers who really hate Sally, and I think that it's entirely unfair. Like, I think there's a lot of people who hate Sally just because, you know, Sun Amy OTP. Really, shippers need to remember that, like, all the love, ship everything. I ship everything, okay? There's nothing actually really, there's never really anything wrong with, okay, there's a couple of exceptions, but so long as a ship is not, like, you know, even then, really, the truth is you can ship whatever you want. It really doesn't matter. I've seen some really weird ships in my day, and some of them are really inappropriate, but, truth is, I don't really care what you ship. If you can give me a good story, then I don't care. I'll just accept whatever it is. Incest, whatever, I don't care. just no pedophiles, please. That's I think where I usually draw the line. Is I don't want to see small children being shipped with grown adults. That's my big problem with Rare Spike. No, he's too young. He's a baby, and I don't think that Rarity sees him in a romantic way either. Like even in the some people might point to that sort of what was the name of the episode? Spike growing huge and monstrous, and there's a part at the end of the episode where they're falling to their death, and Spike's like, I got something I want to tell you, and she puts her hoof over his mouth, and she has that face. And I don't think that face was a romantic thing. I think it was more just like, I think it was a loving expression, certainly, but I don't think it was loving in a romantic sense, because I don't think Rarity views him in a romantic light at all. I think she loves him, but I think she loves him in a more familial sort of way. Um, and I think she cares very deeply about it. But I don't think that Rarity would be comfortable with a romantic relationship with Spike, with a real one. At least not until he's notably older, at the very least. And even then, even if he got to be old enough that it was maybe less weird, that, I think that even still, I think Rarity would have a hard time handling a relationship with somebody who wasn't a pony. Don't get me wrong, I love Rarity and all, and I'm not trying to depict her as being like a really superficial bitch, but let's be honest, there's a lot of logistical problems with having sex with a dragon. I'm just saying. There's a lot of complicated issues that go into that. Um, so just like to acknowledge some of that, please. But I do think she cares a lot about him. Me, personally, I don't want to ship Spike and Ember. I am actually really ecstatic that they introduced a female dragon like that. I remember having a conversation with a friend once before about the whole Rare Spike thing, and like I was saying, if they were gonna do a romantic thing with Spike legitimately, what I'd want to see would be, I'd like to see like a female dragon introduced that Spike could connect with, and that he could learn more about his own like species, his own culture, native culture, through this character. And it would maybe even present a potential conflict of interest. Like, it would maybe even give him reason to question whether or not he wants to stay living in pony society, or actually just like go and be with his own people or whatever. But I think that Ember opens the door to do that kind of story. And that makes me really happy. I was not actually expecting that episode. That episode threw me for a loop in a lot of ways, and then it did a number of things that I kind of wanted to see, but wasn't expecting the show to ever actually do. So I give them some real points of that. But I think if you're gonna do a romantic thing with Spike with a canon character, ship him with Ember, man. Best Spike ship ever. Mind you, of course, what we know of Ember is limited, obviously. But I think if there's any canon character already presented in the show, Ember is the character I would ship him with. And I probably will do some Spike and Ember shipping, actually, for that matter, just because it's such a beautiful opportunity. Ember opens the door for real, proper Spike shipping. Sonic X Shadow. See, do you like Sonic and Amy? Well, of course I like Sonic and Amy. I love that couple. Though Knuckles and Rouge is still my Sonic OTP. Sally is more of a sister. I don't see a sister. I could kind of see like a brother-sister dynamic with Sonic and Sally, but I don't think it's really to the extent at which they can't also be romantic. I think it's really more just like childhood friends and his brother-sister, but I can see where you could say that. I respect all ships, as do I. Ship everything. Sonic X Shadow. Sonic X Shadow, my favorite Sonic Yaoi ship. Like, of the Sonic crack ships, Sonato is my favorite. I relate it to it. Let's see. Spike and Ember, love it. I like Dr. Hooves and Ditsy Doo. Yes, Doc and Derpy is always really fun. Those two are so cute together. And I love how they handled it in the show. Like, I don't really care for it when I see fans depicting Doctor Who's as actually being the Doctor. Like, I like the idea that he is just the pony world's equivalent to the Doctor, but not actually the Doctor as we know him. Like, seriously, I'm astonished. I haven't seen this before. Why has nobody written some piece of backstory about him being from Gallifrey? I mean, seriously, that would be like the most easy pony pod Gallop Frey. Think about that. Why has nobody done that yet? Honestly, this needs to be a thing within the fandom. He needs to be from Gallop Frey. Seriously, pony puns. Perfect. Perfect pony pun. And I haven't seen anybody make it. Why? Why? Could make Gallifrey like a distant island or something, some distant land that's far beyond the borders of Equestria, and like no one's ever been there except the Doc, who ended up coming to live in Equestria under some like long convoluted thing. Also, in my family's magic universe, Doc has 12 brothers. You can kind of guess what they look like. Him. So, um, because all the Doctor Who references, man. I love the idea of him being a parody of the Doctor, but not actually the Doctor. And don't get me wrong, I like Ponies with Pockets, Doctor Who's Assistants. It's a fun audio series, but still, I prefer the idea of him being a parody rather than actually being the Doctor. Because with him being a parody, it's just more fun. You can do all kinds of crazy stuff with that. And I mean, the show's logic depicts parallel universes as all having like their own respective versions of characters. Like, when they go to the Equestria Girls universe, there's humanized versions of everybody there. So, I mean, by that logic, people from Doctor Who's universe, like the Doctor, can have a ponified version in the Pony universe. It isn't the same person, but is that universe's equivalent too. So that's my thought on it. But yeah, the Doc and Derpy do also actually have a really adorable character dynamic. I think they work out really nicely together. And you don't even need to be a Doctor Who fan or anything. Like when you watch episode 100 and you see him and Derpy doing stuff, they're just so cute together. And you don't need to know what Doctor Who even is. It's still fun to see those two characters interact anyway. Um, I thought episode 100 was actually a pretty well done episode. People talk shit that like, oh well, so much priority was put on fan service that the writing was shit or whatever. Like, I don't think the writing was actually that bad um for Slice of Life. I think it was actually, it wasn't necessarily the best written episode in the series certainly, but I don't think it was the worst either. I think it was actually a pretty decent episode overall as far as the general writing quality. But I mean, it was totally a fan service bonanza. I can't say that it wasn't, but I don't think that's a bad thing either. I think it's amazing that they went and did that. Like, I couldn't believe they actually went and did all of that. Um, and there were a lot of moments that really made me laugh. And so you're sitting there. When you're like really into the fandom, you're sitting there and you're just geeking out the entire episode. But I think that even if you aren't a fan, like even if you aren't involved in the fandom and you don't get all the references, I think you can still enjoy the episode anyway, because it still has some really funny moments that are just good for what they are. Um, what was I gonna say? I don't know the comment I was gonna make about it. Um, I hate it when I lose my train of thought like that. um, I mean, a little bit of booby. There we go. Just that little bit booby. Um, I really did completely lose my train of thought. It would be nice to see the background ponies show up in more episodes in the future. Like, just not like necessarily play like major roles, but just appear in future episodes with speaking roles and stuff. Like, you could have. To be honest, I feel like it's a little bit of a missed opportunity that the Doc didn't at least make a small appearance in um, the the season finale. Like, you're doing a time travel story. That was a perfect opportunity to put Doc in there just briefly, like just for a minute. You know, like not to be totally distracting or just steal the thunder from the main characters, but you could have just like had a brief cameo from him, and that would have been appreciated. Like that would have been the perfect opportunity to do a little cameo, and they didn't. They didn't, which makes me a little sad. Like you had your chance and you missed it. I mean, how many times are you going to get an opportunity to do a time travel joke with Doctor Who Pony that, like, actually has anything to do with the story? Like, well, My Little Pony, like, it's not like they do time travel stories all the time, so there's only going to be so many opportunities to actually, like, have a good cameo from Doc. Granted, I suppose he can still cameo in episodes as just being the town's eccentric inventor. It doesn't need to be time travel related. Could just be one of his inventions or something. Like, I don't know. He has an invention that goes awry and causes some kind of chaos. I don't know. Oof. Episode 100 was a great episode. Gummy, oh my god. Yes, my jaw dropped at that. Oh yes, the gummy. The gummy thing caught me completely off guard, but I can dig it. Um, the Lyra Bonbon thing. I understand that they didn't want to do. They really tried to avoid any references to humans in Equestria in the show. So I kind of figured that Lyra wasn't going to stick to the fandom depiction very strictly because they don't want to have that character obsessed with anthropology because, oh well, they don't want to introduce humans in Equestria at all if they can avoid it. So even to the extent of their centaur character, they made a monkey on the top half instead of a human on the top half, just to avoid, you know, humans. Anyway, I kind of knew that Lyra wasn't going to stick the way that she was, but Bon Bon didn't really like. There was never anything in the fandom that made me like Bon Bon or made me interested. Lyra was kind of neat, but like I never really cared much for Lyra or Bon Bon. Like I didn't dislike them. I just didn't feel like there was really like they were popular in the fandom, but I didn't really understand why because there didn't seem to be anything really terribly special about them aside from the fact that they were a lesbian couple. That seemed to be like the only interesting thing they had going for them to me. But then episode 100 did the whole thing with Bon Bon being a secret agent, and it came totally out of left field for me, but I thought it was hilarious. I found it really funny. It's like, you know what? Now I like Bon Bon. I didn't like Bon Bon before, but this episode made me like Bon Bon. So congratulations, writer. I like her now because now she's interesting. Um, it's really funny. Let's see, Apple Dash, Princess Big Mac, Apple Dash shipping, huh? I actually am generally not terribly interested in any of the main six shipped together. Like, I'm not opposed to them, but none of them really feel all that interesting to me. And I think mostly just because in all of these cases, I feel like if you put these two characters in a romantic relationship, it would be pretty much the same as the relationship that we already see them in the show. Like, I'm not really sure if anything would actually change dramatically if they were romantically inclined. Um, because they're already depicted as being such close friends in the first place, I feel like the only thing that would really change is that they're sleeping together. And that's not something that you see on screen. That's like, because this is a kid's cartoon. I don't think the relationship dynamic would change. Is the reason why I'm usually not interested in those couples, just because I think that, well, I've already seen that. But if I was gonna ship two members of the main six together, I would be probably a rare and Applejack and Rarity shipper, because Applejack and Rarity, just enough said. They're funny together, and it's like I said, I like Knuckles and Rouge because they bicker like an old married couple, and it's cute and it's funny. And I think Applejack and Rarity, same kind of thing applies there. I tend to really like the sort of opposites attract kind of ships as well. Which is also why I shipped the Big Mac and Rarity together in Family's Magic. I shipped Big Macintosh with Rarity, and Rare Mac needs more love. I need you people to go and draw Rare Mac pictures for me, and I need more Rare Mac in my life. Make more. I wanted to try and get a bunch of people to do pictures of them so that I a Rare Mac shipping video just using artwork done by a bunch of different artists because I thought that'd be really, really cool. And I posted something about that on DeviantArt. I was even offering to do a prize for whoever did the best piece of artwork. But only one person actually drew something for me, which is sad. Um, Rarity and Big Macintosh. The ship needs more love. I think it makes actually pretty good sense when you stop to think about it, though. Like, if I was going to ship Big Mac with any member of the main six, I think Rarity actually, ironically, makes, like, people like to ship him with Fluttershy, but the problem with Fluttershy is that I don't think there's any personal growth to be had in that relationship, because they both struggle with being introverted and quiet and whatnot, so I don't think that either character benefits from the relationship at all, and a relationship should be an opportunity for personal growth, and I don't think there's any of that would go on in that relationship. Um, on top of it, too, so we haven't actually seen Big Macintosh interact with any member of the main six really outside of Applejack, you're probably thinking right now, right? But actually, no. There is one member of the main six outside of Applejack that we know for a fact Big Macintosh interacts with on a fairly regular basis. And that is Rarity. People seem to, I know this is like a small detail, and I guess no one really stops to think about it, but he was in the acapella group with Rarity, right? And I know that might not seem like a big deal, but with Big Mac being the introvert that he is, the fact that he's in the acapella group means that the other members of that acapella group are probably the closest friends he has. He's not somebody who's very extroverted and outgoing, so he doesn't probably make a whole ton of friends. The fact that he's in that group with Rarity suggests that he actually probably has more of a relationship with Rarity than he does with any other member of the main six. There's probably a pretty good chance that Big Mac is maybe even fairly close to her. Like, I'm not necessarily saying they're romantically inclined, although I wrote it that way in my story because I can do that. But it does suggest within the canon of the show that he does have at least some level of friendship with her that supersedes his connection to the rest of the main six. Because we don't see him in, like, that acapella group presumably meets up and does practice and stuff fairly regularly. So, fairly regularly, he's meeting with and talking with Rarity, interacting with her, and probably relatively close to her. In my universe, I set it up that Big Mac and that Rarity actually was the one who got Big Mac into the acapella group in the first place, and that the two of them used to be an item when they were teenagers, but that the relationship didn't work out at the time for personal reasons. But I don't know. It's speculation, but I suppose, and headcanon and whatnot. But I just can't help but think we've not seen him interact with any other member of the main six in a social setting aside from Applejack. So Rarity seems to be an exception. Granted, I suppose by that logic, you could also just as easily ship him with the other chick in the acapella group, What's Her Face. But nobody cares about What's Her Face. So I actually know her name. It's because I'm a dork, but I'm pretending like I don't. Anyway, but um, so Rarimac peoples, more people need to ship it. Ship it, all the shipping. I want to see all the Rarimac art. I want my next gens to become fanon. I want them to dominate the fandom. I want all other next gen characters to become obsolete because mine will be the only ones anyone cares about. And I don't want to be compared to Bride of Discord again. That happened once and it ticked me off, and I don't want it to happen again. I am not Bride of Discord. I am not under any obligation to tell my story even remotely like theirs. Bastards. Give people some creative freedom, man. I don't know. I'm not sure if that person was just stupid or just a troll. I can't really tell. Granted, I suppose trolls are kind of stupid, so the same difference, really. Oof. Making that a little bit smaller. Big Mac rarity. Yeah, it makes sense. It does. Big Mac sings. Aw. I think the other two pony tones are together. Yeah, I kind of had that suspicion myself. Like, that was kind of. I figured that those two would be with each other, and then Big Mac would be with Rarity. Well, not romantically with Rarity at that point in the show, but be friends with Rarity. So, I suppose my goal should be to try and finish this picture, and then we'll call it a night. Urgh. Oof. Oh, dang. And then a little bit there. Okay. Let's start combining things, because I have accumulated quite a lot of layers. Unfortunately, this headset starts squishing my ears after a while. It sucks. Oh, that's what that is, so I don't really want to. Oh well, whatever. That works. The Rouge. So yes, if you support Rarimac, then go forth. They don't even all need to be romantic pictures. You can just like ship them as friends. I don't care. But give me all the Rarimac art. I want it. I want all of it. I've found like one person on DeviantArt that draws Rarimac with any regularity. And it is becoming my pony OTP for no other reason than the simple fact that it's completely underappreciated and I don't see enough people shipping it. Because dang. I mean, of all the members of the main six, Rarity is actually probably the only one that actually has any chance of legitimately having a pre-existing relationship with Big Mac and canon. I mean, there's nothing suggesting that Big Mac is even closely familiar with Fluttershy. People just ship them because of their personalities. And Applejack's his sister, so yeah. I mean, you can ship it if you really want to. Oh, dang. Dang. I did not mean to do that. There. But Big Mac actually has been seen doing things that are social with Rarity and two other ponies. Which, those two other ponies are probably also pretty close to him. But yes, Raramac. Oh, the Raramac. Give it to me. That heals wrong, I'm pretty sure. Oh, frick it. I'm not gonna fix your foot. I'm just gonna leave it. I'm gonna ignore it. Just don't even. Because I've been working really slow. Arg. Don't even. Just gonna. You know what? I'm gonna make these look more like her traditional boots instead. And put little hearts on the toes so they look more reminiscent of her traditional design. Yo, back at you, Mr. Cornflake Cereal. Cornflakes! Cornflakes! Too bad I'm more of a Fruit Loops kind of gal. Actually, I don't remember the last time I actually ate a bowl of cereal. I have cereal in my house and I almost never eat it. Instead, I cook like eggs or something. Or I have those days where I'm too lazy to make breakfast and I just don't eat until like noon, and then I just make myself some hearty meal, like a pork chop or something. Get pork chops pretty cheap, like Aldi's. Cheap food. Lots of cooking though. But I don't mind. Although cooking something does sound about pretty appetizing right about now. I am hungry. Should make food soon. Raw. Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Do not skip breakfast. Aw. Oh, it's sweet of you to be concerned. Yeah, sometimes I don't eat as much as I should. And Jesse gets on to me about it. Rawr. Come to think of it, if anybody ever wanted to earn some real suck-up points, they could draw my character and Jesse's. I don't draw him as often because I'm drawing a million other things. But he is a possum, and there are pictures of him online. They do exist. I have some pictures of him. Jesse the possum. Jesse the awesome possum. Hey! Sorry. Sorry. Excuse me. I have I have a picture of him. I did a ref sheet at one point. For my friend. I did not mean to click on that. Here we go. There you go. There's Jesse the possum. I put link in chat. My sneeze is cute, huh? It's not the first time I've been told that. So, there you go. I put a link in the chat to Jesse the possum. He's my boyfriend. I don't draw his character very frequently just because I'm usually doing other things. His feet are all messed up in this picture because I was using the reference sheet base that my friend uses when she does stuff. So when I tried to do his toes, I did them all wrong. His big toes are on the outside when they should be on the inside. Fail. The toes are backwards. But I was, yeah. I was just trying to focus on getting the pattern and everything. The outfit's flexible. Like, you could probably draw him in some other things aside from the glasses, but mostly he just wears like hoodies and stuff. But that's pretty close to what he looks like, to how he dresses in real life, actually. The glasses are kind of cartoony, but the rest of the costume's actually pretty accurate to how he dresses normally. Alright. Goddamn boots. Boots. Rawr. We're getting close to done with her. Her face in the background. I might just find a stopping point and have you guys tell me if you want to watch me finish doing the rest of this picture. When you guys can have a little vote in the chat section on when you would like me to do live streams, if I'm going to do them more regularly. Like, if I did live streams once a week, what would you guys like to see? Like, what day? I might even make that a poll on DeviantArt. Let me know what would be best for all of you lovely people out there. And I will do my best. Start trying to do live streams regularly for everybody. We're down to her face. There's a tail. It's down to the face now. Rouge, rouge, rouge. Rouge, rouge, rouge. Thunder? Oh, you remember Thunder. God. Oh, Thunder was a Saturday or Sunday, usually busy during the week. I see. I'll make a poll on DeviantArt and ask people. Thunder was a character I designed a long time ago. At the time that I originally designed Alex and whatnot, I was in that phase where everybody has to be shipped with somebody. I think that I'm not the only person who's gone through that phase, where like every character needs a romantic interest, right? I was single at the time, and I made a character to be my character's boyfriend because I wanted people to be able to ship her with somebody, right? So Thunder wasn't a real person, he was just Thunder. And he served his purpose until I got my first real boyfriend. And if you go on my old account, you'll see that it went from Thunder to Sean, who was a raccoon. And then it went from that to Hawk, which was also on my old account for a little while, was my previous boyfriend. And he was a dog. He was like a black lab or whatever. And now it's Jesse. It's a possum. So Alex has had multiple boyfriends throughout the history of that character. But Thunder, he was a favorite. You drew a lot of him. I did at the time. I didn't have a lot else to do, really. But yeah, part of the reason why I drew so much of him at the time is because I wanted to be able to do videos with him, with the character, and I needed enough stock art to do videos. So I like got in the habit of drawing him frequently. I did do a lot. He was a favorite. If it makes you guys feel better, Thunder's actually in the Author Society though. He's not gonna have the same name. I haven't committed to what name I want to give him in the Author Society, but he still looks pretty similar. But he is in the Author Society as like one of the side characters. He's not really probably gonna see a whole ton of screen time, but he's there. And he does actually play a significant role in he's going to play a significant role in a couple of issues. So if it makes you feel better, he will be there. I haven't completely gotten rid of him. Let's play with lips. Lips, 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 lips. Oh, the beautiful, luscious lips. I've also got a fantasy novel, guys, that I've been working on. The original Broken Prince was written years ago. I challenged myself to try and write a book in a month. And so I wrote it, and it was terrible, but I wrote it, and some people did really like it. If you're one of those people who read the original version and you liked it, well, I've been working on a rewrite that I have made exclusive for Patreon. You can go on Patreon and read it. The prologue was posted to DeviantArt for people, but the full first chapter is on Patreon. It probably still has edits to go before I'm happy with it, but I'm going to go and write the second chapter and stop fussing over the first one because I've spent so much time just constantly nitpicking it to death and unhappy with it. So I'm going to go on to the second chapter. But you guys will probably enjoy it more than I will because you know what they say: you are your own worst critic. It's $5 on a month on Patreon to read it, and you will get to read it as new chapters are completed. They will go up there, and you will read them and enjoy them. I hope. Um, for those who don't have any idea what Broken Prince was, it is essentially a classical fantasy story about a war. It's got four fantasy kingdoms, and they're at war, and the main character is the son, the lost son of a dethroned king, and has to go back and defeat his uncle or whatever. Typical kind of fantasy story stuff. The original version, most of the time, the people who liked the original liked it not because of the story itself. Because, I mean, the story itself is kind of paint by numbers fantasy, but it was the characters that got a lot of people really invested in it. I still really like the characters in Broken Prince myself. A lot of people like Leo. Um, the new version, I've made quite a lot of changes from the original story, like a lot. But the basic plot has remained the same. Like the basic plot elements have stayed the same, but um, I have a lot of plans for changes down the road from the original version. There's going to be a bunch of new chapters. Like where the original version ended, this one is actually going to continue on even further for another several chapters after that. And you'll get to see some of Kyrilia, which um, the four kingdoms in the book that are described are Kyrilia, Talamir, Gonded, and Alari. Alari being the large kingdom to the west that is mostly rural farming territory and whatnot, and then Gonded is an island to the south, full of fox people. The Gondeds are foxes, the Tali are badgers, the Aller are wolves, and then the Kyrilians are mountain lands. But in the original version, you never really got to see Kyrilia. It was mentioned a few times, but never shown. And we knew that the main character was part Kyrilian, but we never actually saw that part of the world. And in this version, I wanted to actually get a chance to explore it a little bit, even if it's only briefly. Names have changed quite a lot. The king's name has been changed to Randovan, and the main character is now Marek. So if I stopped now, it would look creepy. I see. Did the same, but but yeah, I would really, really dig it if you guys would check out the Patreon and support and show your love. Show me how much you love me. That would really be awesome. Um, and you can read the book. You can read the first chapter. I don't know when the second chapter will be out, but it'll be out. And there's other stuff on there too. Like there's some Meet the Vampires concept art that you don't get to see on any of my other pages. There's some deleted scenes from the Author Society, like older concept art from the Author Society as well. And those are like at the $1 mark. Then of course there's some naughty stuff at the $10 mark. And at 5, there's the first chapter, Broken Prince, and when the Author Society is released, um, the first issue it will also be made available to read on Patreon at the $5 mark. Really, any comic or book I produce you can read online at $5 a month. So I'm gonna try this. It's probably gonna look terrible, but I'm gonna try it for just a second and see how that looks. It feels so dumb, but I'm gonna try this stupid idea. Sorry. Yeah, uh, totally unrelated thing. Anyway, so yeah, stuff that you can read and look at on Patreon. I got pervy stuff on there for all the little pervy pervs. All little pervy pervs. This is gonna look so dumb. I'm trying it just to see because I'm curious. Can't help it. There's a nose. Free to form. Bring it down there so it looks more like a heart. What do you guys think of that nose? I know it's not as visible because I haven't shaded. No comments. Hmm. There are. Sorry, I've got nose problems. I apologize. I'm gonna try and save this because I'm realizing in all this time that I've been doing stuff, I have not saved anything. I'm getting away from that folder. Dang it, computer. Why? I just ignore what's on the screen. That's. No. Why? Why? Dang it. I can't, get away from it because the program is bugging. If it, completely shuts down right now, I will rage quit. I have forgotten to save in all the time that I've been talking, so if it were to say shut down right this minute, I would lose everything. It probably won't, though, if I just sit and wait. This happens often enough for me with sides, so usually if I just wait long enough. Come on. Dang it, bastard. Something. Will you please? Okay. Wait for program to respond. I really don't want to lose all of this. Please work. Please start working. Please. Please, Sai. Why? Why? You're evil. Why? It's... Oh, fucking buggery. A son of a bitch, motherfucking. And the whole thing just shut down. Alright, that sucked. Oh, God. So the whole program just crashed. Well, good night, everybody.